Okay, it is now 6:05, so we're going to go ahead and begin. First of all, I would like to thank all of you for taking the time to come and attend this virtual meeting. For those of you who do not know who I am, my name is Mr. VC. I am the director over the Enrichment Masters programs. And there are five discussion topics that I'm going to be covering today. I'm going to do my best to keep things as brief as possible so you can get on with the start of your weekend, or just in case any of you need to make any last minute preparations for the potential storm coming our way. So that being said, there will be a Q&A session afterwards, a brief one. Unfortunately, it won't be able to be too long because I have another virtual parent meeting that I'll have to jump right into with another school. The last thing I do want to mention is that this meeting is being recorded for the sake of any parents who wanted to attend but could not. We will be posting the video on our website and making it available for you to watch at a later time. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to go over are our December events. So when you first registered back in August or early September, one of the things that may have been shared with you is that we use a project-based model. Um, Simply put, each week that our instructors come out and they are training the students, we're always preparing them for a final presentation of some kind. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to briefly, quickly share my screen, and I'm going to ask if someone, because I can't see both screens simultaneously, I'm going to ask if someone will please just verbally let me know when you're able to see what's on my screen. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about these four events. So the first event is called a Night of Enrichment. This is actually our largest event for the fall semester. Um, as you can see, there are, so whether you realize it or not, we are in 15 Broward schools. There are 15 schools in Broward that have our Enrichment Masters program and 10 schools in Dade County. So the schools that will be participating in this event, there will be students from Banyan Elementary, Country Hills, which is you all, Dolphin Bay and Miramar, Eagle Point and Weston, Imagine Charter Weston, Indian Trace and Weston, Palm Cove and Pines, Riverside and Coral Springs, Peters Elementary and Plantation, Silver Lakes and Miramar, Somerset Central Miramar, Somerset North Lauderdale, Villa Elementary and Sunrise, West Park in Hollywood, and Winston Park in Coconut Creek. And so one of the reasons why this is our largest event is because it includes 7 different enrichment programs. And those enrichment programs are the pottery and ceramics, sketching and comic book creators, fashion design, film production, music production, podcasting, and actors and screenwriting. So in the case of you all at Country Hills, I believe that you have at least 3 enrichment programs that will be participating in this particular event. So as I mentioned, all 4 of the events that we're going to be covering take place during the month of December, tentatively around the 3rd week of December. Right now, we are finalizing negotiations with the chosen venues. As you can imagine, we had to find a venue that would accommodate all of the visitors that we're expecting. So believe it or not, we're anticipating anywhere between 700 to 1,000 people in attendance. So it's going to be a very, as I said, very large event. In speaking about our event, one of the things that we endeavor to do is to make sure that it's an experience. We want to give the students an experience as well as you, the parents. And what I mean by that is most students are accustomed to, whenever they have a winter show at school, it's usually done in the cafeteria and they're used to that. But we like to, give them an opportunity to be placed in a different type of setting, a different type of environment. So this event is almost kind of thing, art deco kind of thing, where there'll be a variety of exhibits. There'll be a variety of live presentations. There'll be music. There'll be food. So we expect that everyone in attendance, family, friends, administrators, teachers, and students, of course, will certainly enjoy themselves. And we want to do whatever we can to create as many poignant experiences for the students so it will stay with them, hopefully, throughout the remainder of their life. So with that in mind, I'm going to move on to the next event, which is our Robot Rumble. So this tournament, as you can see, includes 10 other schools, 10 other schools in the district. So all of the robotics teams will be coming together, and they will be competing against each other in the Robot Rumble tournament. Right now, this is about, I believe, week 3 for Country Hills. So all the students are still on the introductory week with everything. Everything is right now still an introductory period. So even the robots that they're going to be practicing on, the solar robot kits and so forth, they're very rudimentary, beginner level robots, just to kind of introduce students to the process so they can become familiar with identifying certain components, knowing what the power source looks like and so forth. And then about 3 or 4 weeks from now is when they will start working on their actual competition robot, which is much more involved and will require a greater degree of programming. So again, each week that the students come, the robotics and engineering students, this is what they are working towards. Next, I want to move on to our next event, and just to circle back to the robotics, we're expecting around 500 to 700 people in attendance of that one. Our ultimate drumline competition. This is another one of our large events. As you can see, there are several schools that have our drumline program and that participate in it. We like to do it big for the students. When they are on the stage, we have flashing lights all over the place. We have sound and things on the screen and so forth. And so we like to really create an atmosphere that's just charged with energy and excitement. So when the students, when they're in their uniform and they have their headbands on and so forth, and their school colors being represented and competing against students from other schools, they just love it. It's very exciting, especially with them getting an opportunity to interact with other students that they normally would not get the chance to see or to even meet. And so like the others, the crowd is usually very large for this one. We also like to have a featured guest performer. It's usually either a local high school drumline or a college drumline, just to give the students an opportunity to see how things are done at a higher level and to have something to aspire to should they continue to stick with drumming or anything music related. The other thing I want to point out about this particular event is that there are judges and there is live voting that takes place. So there is some audience participation as well. And so it's just a fun time for everything, and a memorable time for everyone. And then last but not least, the fourth event that's taking place is the 3-on-3 basketball tournament, where students from 3 different schools, at least within Broward County, that have this enrichment program will be competing and playing each other in a tournament. So the last thing I want to mention about, and I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen. The last thing I wanna mention about these events is that, once again, this is what your children are preparing for. And things are only going to continue to intensify and pick up as they progress. So as I said, right now, though they're in the introductory periods, pretty soon they're going to start receiving, links to at-home practice videos. The instructors are going to be sharing more information with them, showing them different techniques, whether it be something like, teaching them how to do a 5-stroke drum roll or different things of that nature. And so as things get more and more challenging, I want to point out this is one of the reasons why in the very beginning, we let parents know that we only allow students to change once. And that's because if they are constantly trying to go back and forth, well, in September, I want to do drumline. And then in October, I want to do robotics. And then in November, I want to try basketball. Our model is not designed for that. If we allowed students to constantly do the back and forth, then they would never learn the skills, acquire the skills necessary in order to be prepared for their final presentation and final project, which typically also includes other students in the group who are relying on them. So again, the last thing I'll mention is that the venue that we are currently finalizing, we like to choose something that is centrally located. As you saw with the 15 Broward schools, they're spread all throughout the county. And so we targeted a location that was not too far for either parties to meet at. So regardless of whether they're coming from Coral Springs like you all or from Miramar, it's kind of an even distance for all involved and who will be attending. So that brings me to the next thing. Let's go on to the next topic, and one which I'm excited about, and that is our new system. So I'd like to start this particular segment, number one, by apologizing to all of you. And I mean, this is a sincere apology. Trust me, we are well aware that at the beginning there were, that you all experienced a degree of certain frustrations, whether it was with being able to, register quickly or switch over, or even with the phones and so forth. And so I would like to share this little nugget or tidbit of history. So last year, we were serving about 6 schools in Broward County. And as you saw, this year, we are actually serving a total of 25 schools. So we experienced a significant increase, 15 schools in Broward and 10 in Dade County. So we went from having around 200 students to over 1,100 students in our program. And so with that in mind, as you can imagine, the original system that we were using, unfortunately, was grossly insufficient and could not handle the increased degree of volume. And even with the calls, we do have people who answer the phone, but as you now are most likely realizing, it's a little different when you have parents calling from 6 different schools, as opposed to parents calling from 25 different schools around the same time at dismissal. So it's not necessarily that the phones are not being answered, it's just that we're being inundated and overwhelmed with calls around the same time. So again, we have made strides and efforts to add more people to be able to handle the increased volume of calls. And even with this new system, so going back to the new system, it's going to be powered by a vendor called Kangaroo Time. I can tell you right now, I've been in meetings along with our IT team. We've been in a number of demo meetings and sitting through about 10 demonstrations with a variety of vendors until we found the one that we felt had the functionality and the features that we not only needed, but that we also felt that you, the parent, would come to enjoy as well. And so we're very excited about this new system. It empowers you, the parents, a lot to be able to make changes on your own rather than needing to rely on us. It streamlines the registration and the checkout and even parent dismissal and sign out process tenfold. They even have with their app the ability to just simply scan a QR code and it'll timestamp the student's departure and everything else. So what's going to happen is, believe it or not, starting next week. So I do want to make this very clear. We start the migration process next week. However, the completion of that process won't be done until about mid to late October. And so what's going to happen is we're going to be migrating all of the information in our current system over into this new system, which simply means that you won't have to re-register or anything like that. So all of the parent information and all of the students' information is going to be populated and migrated into this new system. And the only thing that you'll be required to do, you will receive an email prompting you to create a password, a personal password for your particular account. And then once you do that, you'll be directed to your dashboard. You'll be able to go in and see your payment history. You'll be able to go in and see what programs your child is currently registered for, and so forth. And sorry about that. And with that in mind, as I said, it's going to be something that you're really going to enjoy. The last caveat is that, unfortunately, you will have to enter your payment information over again. And the reason why that is, I know that some parents obviously have stored their payment information in our current system, but because they are separate systems, as you can imagine, one vendor cannot share your personal credit card information with another vendor. They don't have the authorization to do so. Besides creating your own password, you will have to once again enter in your payment information into the new system once we fully migrate over. So as I said, we're very confident that you're going to enjoy it. I know we're happy about it. And we'll definitely, this new system definitely can handle the 1,100 plus students that we're now dealing with. And so, I can't say it enough. We truly apologize for any inconveniences or frustrations that you, the parents, may have experienced with the bottleneck that took place and the slow turnaround. So let's go ahead and move on. That takes me to our next discussion topic. So the next thing I'd like to discuss is we've had some requests from parents if we could share our curriculum with you all. So with that being said, we cannot share our complete curriculum with you. The reason why we don't do that is, believe it or not, in this particular industry, which is the educational support services industry, more often than you think, there are individuals who are constantly, visiting our website, trying to look and see what's being done, to, get different ideas and so forth. And because our curriculum is proprietary, we don't share that with the general public. However, what we have elected to do, and for a couple of reasons that I'll get to, we have opted to share, starting next week with you, what we call a weekly program activities overview, which will give you, highlight, it'll at least paint a picture for you as to what the instructor is covering that week and what your child is learning. So I'm going to once again very quickly share my screen. I'm going to ask if someone will volunteer to just let me know when you can see what's on my screen. So can you all see my screen at this time?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that. All right, so the weekly program activities overview is going to look something similar to this. So as you can see, it'll show the week of. So for this particular example, the week of September 19th, which was this week, it'll show the school. It'll show the program, the enrichment program, so pottery and ceramics. It'll show the weekly project that they're going to be doing during that session. So for example, creating your own Rubik's Cube. It'll also let you know any covered skills or terms. In other words, the knowledge base that's being covered. So whether they're talking about covering smoothing or demonstrating how to develop and construct a cube, a sphere, or a prism. It'll also detail what the learning or practice activity is going to be. So whether they are practicing water control or how to use the pottery wheel or smoothing techniques, things of that nature. It will also include any links for that week that to instructional videos that the instructor wants the student to go home and practice. And then last but not least, it will also let you, the parent, know which event this particular session is preparing the students for. So as previously mentioned, pottery and ceramics, the thing that they are working towards and preparing for is the night of enrichment event. So with that in mind, I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And I do want to point out one more thing. So another reason that we chose to share these weekly program activity overviews with you all is because our hope is that with you having this, it'll now better equip you to have a different type of conversation with your child when it comes to enrichment masters. So for example, rather than you asking, let's say, you pick up your child and you ask, how was enrichment masters today? Or how was pottery? And sometimes, your child will just say, oh, it was good, or we did this. And as most of you are aware, most parents in here, like myself, know that once your child starts getting older, when they start reaching middle school years and high school, sometimes the tendency is that it becomes more challenging and difficult to get more information out of them. And so we want to do whatever we can to help you to be able to really, savor these years when they're in elementary school and get as much quality time as possible with them, so you can engage in, a more directed and a more educated or sophisticated type of conversation with your child. So with you knowing in advance, let's say, for example, with pottery, if you see in the overview that they're going to be going over texture or smoothing techniques, with you knowing that in advance, you can pose the type of question, well, hey, I saw that you all were learning about texture today and you were going to be going over smoothing techniques. Tell me about that. How did that go? And then that now, with that type of directed question, you can engage in a different type of conversation and hopefully get a different and more detailed response. And so instead, we hope that you get something like, well, yeah, we learned we used the sponge and we would wet the sponge and we'd use it to smooth out the clay. And then they showed us a picture of bark and showed us how that's an example of texture. And then they showed us a picture of some dried or chipped paint, and that was completely different from the bark. And then we learned about texture, and then we got to practice on the clay and created our own texture, and yada, yada, yada. And so with you now being equipped with these types of overviews, our hope is that the quality of the conversation will improve, and that it'll also better keep you, the parent, in the know. Because let's be honest. I mean, again, as a parent, you have your children in these programs because you want them to get something out of it. You want them to be enriched. You want them to be engaged in substantive quality programming. And so with you being aware of what it is that they are learning, this just allows you, to be honest, to be a bit more confident in knowing what it is that they're learning, and that just putting it bluntly, being able to, hold us accountable and making sure that, hey, that you guys are doing exactly what you said you were going to do. And again, please know that that's something that we endeavor to do every day. We are constantly making improvements, adapting to each new school, because every school is different. One dismissal procedure at Country Hills is completely different than the one at Dolphin Bay or Silver Lake. So there are different things that we have to quickly learn to adapt to, so it becomes more efficient and more accommodating for you, the parent. So that's the next thing. I don't want to stay on there too much longer, because I want to make sure that I hit all of the topics, so there's some time for discussion before my next meeting. So that brings us to the next discussion topic, which is the next payment. So as I said, this is week 3 for most of you. It may be week 2 for some parents as well, who may have started the following week. So if you didn't begin the week of September 6th, perhaps you got started the week of September 13th, and so forth. And so starting, if not tonight, I believe over the weekend and next week, some parents who have already had week 3 or already on week 3 will start receiving emails with reminders about the next payment coming up. And that email will also contain a link to for you to make the payment. Obviously, for any parents who chose to just pay for all of the fall sessions up front, that is not something that you need to be concerned about. And I do want to just stress this, because not every parent was aware. So with that in mind, your child's spot is secured by the payment. So there were some parents in the beginning who thought just because they filled out the form that their child was registered. That's not the case. It's the registration and the payment that secures it. Obviously, because you've already completed the registration process, the only thing that you're required to do from now on to keep your child's spot is just to continue to make the payment from month to month. So with this next period to payment, parents, you will, that's when the option to have an automatic billing or recurring billing, you will see that option this time around. So if that is something that you choose to do, you will be able to do that. Or for the parents who can be sometimes forgetful, because that does happen. That even happens to me. Sometimes you see the reminder and you say to yourself, oh, okay, I'll take care of that on Friday. And then Friday comes and you forget. And then the weekend, you're relaxing, or you're partying, you're at the beach, or, you're taking your kids to soccer or to a game. And then next thing you know, the weekend comes and you forget. And then you get another notice and you're like, oh, okay, all right, I'll take care of that tomorrow. And then tomorrow passes, and then next thing you know, you've completely forgot about it. And then you're getting a call or a notice that your child is no longer in the program, and you're like, oh my goodness, I forgot. And next thing you know, someone takes your spot. So with Country Hills, your school in particular, please know that there are several parents, because your program filled up so fast, there are several programs who are, in a sense, kind of lying in wait for an opening to come. And so, I guess implore you to please either stay on top of the monthly, the recurred billing, or just pay for yours in advance, so you don't lose your child's spot. Because again, they are, every week that they're coming, they're working towards those events that we covered at the beginning. And they're gonna, like I said, be very large, exciting events that your child is gonna wanna be a part of. So once again, expect to see the emails, if not tonight, starting next week, and it will have the payment link that allows you to make the next period 2 payment, or just go ahead and knock out the remainder of the payments that are due. The last point I do want to bring up is that please know that with your payment, it covers 4 sessions. So regardless of whether you got started September 13th, it's still going to cover 4 sessions. That just means, for example, so for anyone who got started September 6th, that means that your first payment covered September 6th, 13th, 20th, and the 27th. For anyone, I'm sorry, I'm getting my schools confused. You all are on Thursdays. Let me back up. So for anyone who started September 8th, that means that your payment would have covered the 8th, 15th, 22nd, and the 29th. However, if you got started on September 15th, that means that your payment covers the 15th, 22nd, 29th, and October 6th. So again, your payments are always going to cover 4 sessions. It's not necessarily that you are covering a month. So I do want to clear that up. And then last but not least, I want to bring up and make parents aware that we do. So I'm sorry, let me start by saying this. We do have, there are 4 core values that we instill and impart into the students. The first one being focus. Throughout this semester and throughout the program, we are constantly communicating to them the importance of knowing how to focus and how important it is, not just in school, but throughout your life. For example, for any students who may be in fashion design, the importance of paying attention and focusing on what you're doing, because if your foot is hitting that pedal and your hands are feeding the cloth or the fabric through the needle, if you're not focused on what you're doing, I mean, you could easily get your finger pricked. Or if you're in drumline practice and you're not concentrating or focused on what you're doing, I mean, you could easily hit your hand. So that core value of focus is one of the first things that we instill in them. The second core value is the importance of friendship. Because not every child knows how to initiate or cultivate a friendship. And so we teach them the importance of how to, friendships are important. You need someone that you can rely on. And one of the things that's so unique and wonderful about these enrichment programs is what we find 9 times out of 10 is that for the student who registers and who's in the robotics program, even though they may not be surrounded by their classmates, usually we find that they are surrounded by like-minded students. So for you parents, when you're at home, some of the things that a lot of students who are drawn to robotics and they at home, they may, love being on the computer, or they may love putting puzzles together, or may love building Legos and so forth. Usually they find that the students that they're working with and teaming up with to construct, that they have the same interests. And usually what happens is that during those sessions, when they're putting the pieces together, they're engaged in conversations, not just on the task at hand, but when you're looking for the gear and you're trying to connect the wheel to the gear and so forth, they're talking to each other. They're talking with the instructor, they're talking to each other, they're talking about, different apps and different things like that. And so these are how friendships, as get started when you find someone who has common interests. And so we like to do whatever we can to create as many opportunities, not just for you, the parent, but for the student, to be able to start finding more friends. Because as especially on the elementary school level, most students, with the exception of probably 5th grade, depending on the school, most students are limited to only interacting majority of the time with the other 17 students who are in their class. And so with that being said, this allows them to kind of break out of that environment come into a new realm or new setting where there are other students who are almost just like them, who loves doing puzzles, who loves reading, who loves, you know, tinkering with things and so forth. So with that being said, um, the third core value that we share with the students is fortitude. We like to instill in them that can do, no quit, persistent, tenacious attitude. More often than not, the tendency or the MO of students, and unfortunately even some adults, the moment they encounter something that's challenging or difficult, they want to do the easy thing, which is to say, I quit. Oh, this is harder than I thought it was going to be. I can't do this. And so one of the things that we like to impart into the student is that just because it's hard doesn't mean that you can't do it. It may take some extra work and some extra time to master it, but if you continue to try and stick with it, you can do it. And so never have that attitude, that defeated attitude that you can't do it just because it's hard or it's new to you. No, find that inner strength, that grit, yeah, I can do this. Okay, it's hard. Let me keep at it. I got people who are motivating me, who are encouraging me. My classmates and my group mates are counting on me to stick with this. Let me keep trying, and I guarantee you, I'll get it. I'll work through it, and then you'll be that much stronger, and be that more tenacious and happy that you went through the process, because it is a process. Just because things are maybe not as challenging for them right now doesn't mean that later on they're not going to start encountering things that they've never done before, and that they don't just pick up like that. As I said, things will continue to intensify. And so when your children come across that, I implore you, the parent, it's not always the best thing to say, okay, all right, this is harder than you thought. Okay, honey, then we'll just try something new. Sometimes, that's okay if it's not truly their niche kind of thing. But sometimes if they haven't given it a try long enough, how would they really know? So that fortitude is the third core value. And then last but not least, it's fun. We want them to have fun when they're coming here. And so we do have outings, and those are going to start in the spring. So whether we are one that we're scheduling for the drumline, for example, is we're going to have an outing where we're going to attend a college drumline competition. And of course, you, the parents, are invited. We want you to get as much QT as possible. I don't want to assume that you know what I mean when I say QT, so quality time with your children. And yeah, you're welcome to come so they can experience something different and new, and see those drum lines and those marching bands and see how they're sticking in the sequence, and they're doing this and they're flipping and so forth. So some of you have seen it, and so you know what I'm talking about. And so that's the last thing that I do want to mention. Whether it be in the form of ice cream or an outing, we try to create as many opportunities for them to engage and kind to interact in a different setting with their peers and with students from other schools as well who are in the same program. So with that being said, I don't want to get too sappy or linger, because believe it or not, I can talk if you let me. But I want to give you guys an opportunity to ask any questions that you may have for the next 5 minutes, so I can answer them before jumping into this next meeting. So again, I thank you all for taking the time on a Friday evening to attend this meeting. And again, please know that every day we are making strides to improve it and to give your children the best quality program that we can, and continue to take things up a notch and make it more engaging, more exciting, and more in depth for them. So with that being said, I want to open the floor up to any questions that some of you may have. Are there any questions?
I have a quick question. Thank you so much, Daniel, for the information. It's really informative. My son was sick last week, so he
Mm-hmm.
missed the class. So I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure if he's like behind or if we need to do anything, do some activity with him to kind of get him up to speed, or by him attending yesterday, if he's technically like, you know, in the same I don't know how to put it, but I feel like we missed a whole
At the same
class
pace as
last week.
everyone.
Yeah, like we missed last week's class.
Okay.
And I don't know what he would have missed. I know this is extracurricular and fun, but I'm just curious.
No, that's a good question. So as I mentioned before, even with the program activities overview that we're going to be sharing with you all starting next week, it will be beneficial to you because it'll allow you to see what was previously covered. And another thing that I touched on briefly was that the at-home practice videos are in the works and going to start being posted soon as well. So that will enable them to be able to practice whatever was covered. Now, with that, going back to your initial question, because they're still, like I said, in this introductory period, I can assure you that whatever he missed was not too dire that it would put him far behind everybody else. That really won't really start happening until about week 4, week 5, as I said, when they start really working on their competition robot, which is different from the practice ones that they are working on and starting to assemble. So it's really during that time when they start working on their competition robot, which is much more involved and involves a greater degree of programming and assembly, where we'll have the videos up, and if they end up missing, then it would be advantageous to have him review it when he gets home. But for right now, he's good.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay. Are there any other questions? No more questions, really? I know someone must have another question.
Hi, this is Kim. Hear me?
Okay. All right. Hi. Yes.
Sorry, I put the question in the chat, but I was curious. I know a lot of the focus for today was on the fall, but I didn't know if there's also a program in the spring and then when sign up happens for that. And if you would recommend that for programs in the spring, if kids should stay in the same enrichment program or if they should change.
Okay, so that's actually a very good question. First off, there is, I think when, I just want to make sure I'm following you when you say program. So we are here for the whole year. There is a fall semester, which we're currently in, and then there's a spring semester, as you pointed out. The project-based model is used throughout the year. So if you were alluding to, will there be a final presentation or event like the 4 that I covered earlier? Yes, there will also be another event in the spring for the spring program. What they will be undertaking will be new. So if there's a situation where, hey, my kid really likes robotics and I want them to continue it in the spring, please know that the project that they will be working on will not be the same as the fall project. So that was actually a very good question that you asked. And then the B or C part to your question is yes, if you do want to, if there are programs that you'd like to make sure that your child is in for the spring, then yes, I would encourage you to secure it with the payment. Obviously, you don't have to enter in your registration information all over again. You would just simply secure it with whatever the spring payment is for that particular program that you desire. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, that makes sense. And when does the spring open, or is that something that's already open?
Yes, that's something you can actually do now.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, I have time for about one or two more questions before I have to jump out. Are there any other questions?
Yes, I have a question. Hi, Daniel. My name is Crystal,
Hi.
and my son absolutely loves Drumline. I didn't think that he would love it as much as he does, so I'm really happy about
Okay,
that.
wonderful. I'm glad.
He told me he wants to do Drumline again in the spring, but
Mhm.
so right now, if he is in the 2 to 3 o'clock Drumline in spring, I also want to sign him up for robotics. So how would I know if for the Drumline in spring would he be in the 2 to 3 o'clock because that's already the class he's in now, or would he maybe change to the 3 to 4 o'clock class? Do you know if they roll over and stay in the same time slot?
So that's another good question. So one of the things that we did change into the system, and I believe our IT I'm sorry, I can't speak. Our IT department has already changed, and I'll double check. But what they did in the checkout is they did add, so not just in the registration. We know that in the registration form, it showed 2 to 3 and 3 to 4. But in the checkout, it did not distinguish the two. So that is something that you can see or should see in the checkout where you can choose for the payment. Okay, I'm paying and choosing the 2 to 3 for this one and the 3 to 4 for that one. So that is something different and new that you will be able to do for the spring that you weren't able to do for the fall.
All right, thank you. I'll check that out because I think I did try signing him up for the 3 o'clock Drumline, but I'm not sure if there are 2 classes, but he got assigned to the 2 o'clock class rather than the 3 o'clock.
For Drumline?
Drumline, yes.
Yeah, so sometimes when we are placing them, I don't know if your son is in aftercare or not, and for Country Hills in particular, there are close to about 200 students who are in the Enrichment Masters programs. And so sometimes, depending on the number of enrollment in one program, we may have to shift a student if they are in 2. They'll still have the 2, it's just that we may have to put them 2 p.m. in this one and then 3 p.m. in the other.
Okay, I got it. Thank you so much. And then just lastly, I did order him those drumstick pencils from online, and he's attended the Drumline class twice already, but he hasn't received them yet. Do you know when that would be coming in?
So all of that stuff is actually already here. So what that simply means is I need to make sure I communicate to the site liaison there to make sure that they make a notation to give it to your son first thing when they see him on next Thursday.
Okay.
So we'll make sure that happens.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. So with that being said, I must apologize. I have to go ahead and jump into another virtual parent meeting. But again, I thank you all for being patient with us. I thank you for taking the time to come out, and please be safe and enjoy your weekend. Bye-bye.